I never thought my own son would turn his back on me. I never dreamed the woman he married would convince him to throw me away like trash. But they had no idea what was coming next. Life had one final surprise for me. And when I used it, everything changed forever. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button for more incredible stories. My name is
Dorothy.
I'm 59 years old, and I used to believe family meant everything. I spent my whole life taking care of my husband and our son Michael. Every dinner I made, every birthday party I planned, every penny I saved was for them. When my husband died from a heart attack last year, I felt like my whole world fell apart. But I told myself I still had Michael. I still had my boy. I had to sell our family home in Round Rock, just outside Austin. Too many sad memories, too many nights crying alone in that empty house. Michael and his wife Jessica said I could stay with them for a while. Well, Michael said it. Jessica just rolled her eyes and went back to her phone. I tried to be the perfect guest. I stayed in the tiny back room. I cooked their meals, cleaned their house, and tried to help with anything they needed. But Jessica had a way of making me feel like I didn't belong. She would give me these cold looks like I was bothering her just by breathing. It started small. She would ignore me when I said good morning. She would change the TV channel when I was watching my shows. One time I heard her whisper to her friend on the phone, "She's like a ghost that won't leave." I pretended I didn't hear it, but my heart broke. Michael never said anything. I would look at him, hoping he would stand up for me, but he always looked away. "She's tired," he would say. "Work is hard for her." I stayed quiet like a good mother should. But that night, that terrible night, it destroyed me. We were eating dinner. I had made meatloaf, Michael's favorite since he was little. Jessica was on her phone, as usual. Michael was drinking his beer and watching TV. Nobody was talking. Then Jessica looked up and said, "We need to talk about this living situation." My heart started beating fast. "What do you mean?" I asked. She smiled that fake smile. "I mean, how much longer is this going to last? You're not paying rent. You're not working. We have our own bills to worry about. We didn't sign up to take care of extra people." The words hit me like a punch. I looked at Michael, my son, the little boy I raised all by myself after his father left us when he was 5. Michael wouldn't look at me. "Maybe Mom should find her own place," he said quietly. "It might be better for everyone." Everyone. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood up, walked to my room, and packed my 2 old suitcases. That's all I had left from my entire life. I didn't cry while I packed. The tears came later when I stood outside their apartment, building in the cold wind, realizing I had nowhere to go. Michael didn't even say goodbye. Jessica didn't pretend to care. I sat on the sidewalk for 2 hours.
My phone was dead.
My heart was broken. I remember thinking, this is what it feels like to be forgotten. That night, I went to a cheap motel, the kind with stains on the carpet and a broken air conditioner. I laid in that uncomfortable bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how my own son could be so cruel. The next morning, I sent Michael a text message. "I understand. I love you no matter what." He never wrote back. I sent more messages over the next few weeks. Birthday wishes, little updates about my day. Nothing. 3 months went by like this. Each day felt longer and sadder than the last. I tried to find jobs, but nobody wanted to hire someone my age who hadn't worked in years. I thought about cleaning houses or watching kids, but my back hurt too much. The loneliness was like a heavy blanket I couldn't take off. I had given everything to that.
Boy, how could he just forget about me?
One evening, I was going through my old photo box, trying to remember happier times. That's when I found it. My mother's old diary that I had forgotten about. I hadn't looked at it in many years. Something told me to open it. I sat on the edge of that uncomfortable motel bed and started reading. My hands started shaking when I found the secret that changed everything. I remember that moment like it was yesterday. My heart was beating so fast because suddenly I wasn't just the mother who got thrown away. I was someone completely different. And for the first time in months, I actually smiled. They took everything from me, but they had no idea what was about to happen. After that night, the days all felt the same. Gray and empty like old dishwater. The motel rooms smelled like old cigarettes and sadness. The ice machine outside my door made noise all night long. I didn't cry every night, but when I did, it was quiet crying. The kind where your whole body shakes but you don't make any sound because nobody cares anyway. I texted Michael again after a few days. Just said, I'm okay. Hope you are too. Nothing back. I tried again 2 weeks later. Just sent a heart emoji. Still nothing. I told myself he was just busy, that Jessica was probably deleting my messages. But as the weeks went by, that hope started to die inside me. My money was running out. I tried to get jobs at stores, restaurants, anywhere that would take me. But they all said I was not what they were looking for. That's just a nice way of saying too old and too sad. One night, I was sitting on the floor, looking through the only box I had brought from my old house. Old pictures, some letters, and at the very bottom, that small leather book. My mother's diary. It surprised me that I had packed it. I don't even remember putting it in the box. I turned on the lamp and opened to the first page. Her handwriting looked just like the notes she used to put in my lunch when I was in school. Pretty and neat. Always written with a pen. At first, it was just normal stuff. What the weather was like, church events, complaining about how much food cost. But then I found the entry from June. He came to see me again today. He said he wished things could be different. That he wished I could be his wife. But he has a family and a business to protect. Dorothy will never know the truth. She must never know. I just hope someday she understands how much I loved her, even if she was born from a mistake. I read it 3 times. Then again. She must never know. I couldn't breathe. I kept reading. Page after page. Stories about secret meetings, hotel rooms, small amounts of money she tried not to take but needed desperately. She never wrote his full name, just the letters RDM. But then I found another entry from February. He said he made plans that if anything happened to him, Dorothy would get something. Part of what he built. It can't be official because it's too dangerous. But he promised me there would be a trust fund. He said his lawyer, Mr. Patterson, would know what to do. My stomach felt sick. Patterson. I had heard that name before. It took me 2 days and many searches on the motel's old computer, but I found him. Robert Patterson, an old lawyer who used to work with rich people in Dallas. I didn't call him because my hands were shaking too much. Instead, I wrote him a letter by hand, telling him who I was and who my mother was. I begged him to talk to me. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. His voice sounded shaky when I said my mother's name. I always wondered if you would find me someday, he said. There's something you need to see. I took a bus to Dallas the next morning. I packed my suitcase, just in case he was lying to me. But when I walked into his quiet office full of old books, I knew it was real. He gave me a yellow envelope that looked very old. It was from Richard Daniel Morrison, the man who started Morrison Oil Company, one of the biggest oil companies in Texas. A man I had seen in newspapers my whole life. A man with a wife, kids, and a good reputation. The letter was written to my daughter Dorothy May. I couldn't read the whole thing at once. I started crying before I finished the first paragraph. He admitted everything. The affair with my mother, how sorry he was, and how much he loved me even though he was too scared to tell anyone. When I die, I have made sure some of my money will go to you, through Mr. Patterson. You are my blood, and even though I was too scared to claim you when I was alive, I claim you now that I'm gone. Mr. Patterson pushed a folder across his desk. Inside were bank accounts, investment papers, and property deeds. The total amount was over $1.2 million. I stared at the papers, then at him. This is really mine? I whispered. He nodded. It always was. My heart was pounding. Not because of the money, but because for the first time in my life, I felt like I mattered. I didn't scream or laugh or cry. I just sat there quietly, letting the truth wash over me like warm rain. That night back in my motel room, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling like I had been doing for months. But this time, I was smiling. They thought they threw me away. They thought I was finished. But they had no idea what was coming. I didn't go back to Austin right away. Something inside me had changed forever. I wasn't just Dorothy, the forgotten mother anymore. I was someone new. Someone who had been lied to her whole life, but finally knew the truth. For the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't drowning in sadness. I could finally breathe again. I stayed in Dallas for a few more days, just walking around, drinking coffee, and watching people live their lives. People who hadn't been thrown away like I had. And for the first time, I didn't feel jealous of them. I studied them. I wondered who among them was hiding pain behind their smiles, who had been betrayed, who had fought their way back from being invisible. Mr. Patterson didn't just give me the money.
He gave me time.
Time to think about what I now had in my hands. It wasn't just money. It was power. And I had no idea what to do with it. But sadness has a way of turning into strength when you've been hurt enough. When I came back to Austin, I didn't go back to that awful motel. I rented a nice apartment downtown just off the main street. Clean, modern, and quiet. The kind of place Michael and Jessica would never think I could afford. I started dressing differently. Nicer clothes, better shoes. Not fancy, just different. The kind of different that makes people take you seriously. I started watching videos online about investing and buying property. I learned the language of business, not because I wanted to be rich, but because I never wanted to be powerless again. That's when I found it. The listing was on a real estate website. A 20-unit apartment building in East Austin. A little old, but still good. The location? The exact same building where Michael and Jessica lived. I sat there staring at my computer screen, heart pounding. It said the owner couldn't pay his taxes and had to sell it quickly. Auction in 2 weeks. I didn't think twice. With Mr. Patterson's help, I created a business company with a fake name. I filed all the paperwork, moved the money, and placed my bid. I wasn't planning to get revenge. Not exactly. But I was going to take control of the one place they thought they owned. The auction came and went. I won quietly and legally. Nobody knew it was me. And just like that, I owned the building where they lived. Where they kicked me out with 2 suitcases and cruel words. Where they embarrassed me when I was at my lowest point. I remember sitting at my desk, looking at the ownership papers and whispering out loud, "Let's see how Jessica likes paying rent to someone she called extra." A month later, letters went out to all the people living in the building. Rents were going up and lease agreements needed to be renewed. And for Michael and Jessica, the new rent was 3 times higher. Not 2 times. 3 times. Market rate plus late fees. Jessica must have gone crazy. I didn't need to see it to know it. I could feel her anger from miles away. But this wasn't about money. It was about respect. Jessica was someone who needed to feel like she was in control, and I had just pulled that control away from her. Silently, Michael tried to call me 2 days after they got the notice. It was the first time he had tried to talk to me since. The night I left, I let it go to voicemail. "Mom, I don't know if you heard, but something strange is happening. Our rent just went up by a lot. Jessica is really upset. I don't know. Can we please talk?" I didn't call him back. This wasn't about getting even. This was about consequences. They needed to feel the weight of what they had done to me. I drove by the building one night. Their lights were on. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. Jessica pacing back and forth. Michael's shadow looked like he was yelling. I watched them for a minute, then drove away. Part of me felt empty, part of me felt satisfied, and part of me still hurt like hell. Because even now, knowing what I knew and having what I had, I would have given anything to be welcomed back. Not to the apartment, but to my son's heart. But I knew that wasn't possible. At least not yet. So I stayed quiet and waited. Because sometimes the loudest justice is the one that doesn't make any noise. And I wasn't done yet. I didn't realize how much I had changed until I saw Michael at the grocery store 3 weeks after the rent increase. He didn't see me. I was in the next aisle, hidden behind a display of cereal boxes. He looked tired. Not just tired, but worn out. His hair was messy, and he looked like he hadn't been sleeping well. His shopping cart was almost empty. Just cheap food like rice, eggs, and generic canned goods. I should have walked away. I didn't. I followed him through the store, staying far enough away so he wouldn't see me. My heart was beating fast like I was doing something wrong.
He
stopped in front of a box of macaroni and cheese, then looked at his phone. Probably a text from Jessica. His shoulders dropped. He put the box back on the shelf. That moment broke my heart. Not because I felt sorry for him, but because I remembered the little boy who used to run to me crying when he scraped his knee. The one who asked me to check under his bed for monsters every night. And now he was living with a real monster. I drove home that day and sat on my couch in silence for hours. I stared out the window, thinking about how life had twisted us into strangers. But I reminded myself this wasn't punishment. This was what happens when you make bad choices. And bad choices were long overdue for consequences. I had bigger plans now. Not just the building, but a slow, careful game of chess. Every move planned out, every step thought through. With my business company set up and the property legally mine, I started making improvements. Small ones at first. Fixed leaks, broken locks, lights that didn't work. Michael never noticed. He was too busy being upset about the rent increase, sending angry emails to the property manager, demanding answers he would never get. But I knew him. I knew how his pride worked. He wasn't going to move. He would see that as giving up. And Jessica would follow whatever he decided to do. So I kept going. I changed the building sign, installed security cameras near the front door, and updated the mailboxes. All under the name of my company, DM Properties. Short for Dorothy May. Nobody knew who was behind it. Then came the notice about yearly inspections, required by law. Michael sent back an angry response full of threats and big words that meant nothing. I smiled reading it. He was falling apart, and I didn't even have to do anything. Meanwhile, I was becoming someone I barely recognized. I wore my hair differently now. Better clothes. I walked with confidence. I started going to business meetings using a fake name, learning about real estate and making connections.
Nobody asked about my past.
They only saw a quiet, smart woman with money in the bank.
The best.
Disguise is just not telling the whole truth. One morning, I walked right past Michael and Jessica in the parking lot as I was leaving a tenant meeting. I kept my sunglasses on and my hair in a neat bun. Papers in my hand. Jessica barely looked at me. Michael didn't recognize me at all. Later that night, I sat in my living room drinking tea, thinking about how strange it felt to walk right past your own child and be invisible. Not because you're weak, but because you're stronger than they remember. They couldn't see me now because they only knew the version of me they used to control. And that woman was gone. The phone calls from Michael continued. Soft, worried voicemails. Hi, Mom. Just wanted to see if maybe you had time to talk. I know things have been complicated. I didn't call him back. Not because I was being mean, but because I needed him to feel the emptiness he had created. And every time I felt like giving in, I opened my mother's diary. I read those words over and over again. Dorothy will never know. She must never know.
But I did know now.
And with that knowledge came a kind of armor that nobody could break through. I was no longer the woman begging to stay in their home. I was the woman who owned it. I always believed that getting even wasn't about hurting someone back.
It was about balance.
Justice without anger. A correction, not a war. But when I saw the email Michael sent after he got the notice of his rent increase, I'll admit I felt a little bit satisfied. The subject line said, rent increase. This is completely unacceptable.
This has to be a mistake.
Tripling our rent is basically stealing. I demand to speak to whoever owns this building. We've lived here for 3 years and never been late with rent even once. This is robbery. He signed it Michael D. Hartwell, like his name was supposed to mean something special. I read that email 3 times, then sent it to my property manager with a simple note. Please respond using our standard policy regarding market rate adjustments. No special treatment for anyone. Michael wasn't just angry. He was shocked. His arrogance never prepared him for the idea that someone could beat him at his own game. He had gotten so used to being in control that the thought of answering to a mystery landlord was driving him crazy. Jessica tried calling me again that same night. The voicemail was different this time. No fake politeness. "Mom, I know you're not answering, but I really need to talk to you.
Things are really hard right now.
Michael is angry all the time. He's taking it out on everyone. We're trying to figure out what to do. I miss you. I really do." Her voice cracked at the end. For a moment, I almost called her back. I could have told her everything would be okay, that I would fix it all. But I didn't. Because it wasn't okay, and I couldn't keep fixing messes that she helped create. Jessica had stood there and watched her husband throw me out like I was garbage they couldn't afford to keep. And now that she was feeling pressure, she suddenly remembered my phone number.
No.
Let her sit with the silence a little longer. The next week, I approved more improvements for the property. New paint on the outside, better lighting in the hallways, and landscaping around the building. Michael's rent money wasn't just punishment. It was paying for improvements that made everyone else's life better. That was the irony. Everyone else benefited from his anger.
He just couldn't see it.
He started leaving angry notes under the office door. "The water pressure is terrible. Trash is piling up everywhere. If this is what we're paying for, it's a complete joke." Every note went ignored. Jessica stopped leaving voicemails. She started sending text messages instead. Short ones. "Hey, can we please talk? I really need you." Then nothing again. Meanwhile, I watched the bank statements come in every month. DM Properties was doing well, making money. The other tenants were quiet, respectful, and paid their rent on time. It was only Michael making noise and Jessica getting caught in a storm. But things changed when I got the quarterly report from the building manager. It included photos of Michael and Jessica's apartment. The bathroom had black spots on the walls, kitchen tiles were cracked, and mail was piled up on the
floor.
They were cutting corners, living cheap. I should have felt sorry for them. Instead, I felt clear about everything. This wasn't just about rent money. It was about power. And Michael was losing his fast. Word around the building was that he had started working extra hours at his job. Jessica was seen crying on the back steps one afternoon by another tenant. They were falling apart from the inside out, and I didn't have to say a single word. That was the part that kept surprising me. For so long, I was the one begging to be heard. Begging Jessica to see what kind of person she was becoming by standing beside Michael when he was cruel to me. Now they were choking on their own silence, and I was watching from above.
Literally.
My new apartment looked down at their courtyard. Different building, higher floor, safer neighborhood. A view they could never afford. I didn't watch them all the time, just enough to remember that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined the betrayal, that what they did to me deserved what was happening now. And yet, despite all of that, some nights I still found myself sitting by the window, holding my phone, staring at Jessica's last message. "I really need you." The woman inside me, the mother, still hurt. But the woman I had become knew this was only the beginning. I always thought heartbreak came in loud moments. Slamming doors, screaming fights, public scenes. But real heartbreak is quiet. It comes in the form of a voicemail you don't return, a message you don't read, the silence between you and someone who once called you mommy. The calls from Jessica stopped completely. The text messages slowed down. But the problems on their end only seemed to get worse. From what I learned through the building staff, the fighting in their apartment had turned into open war. Michael was snapping at everyone, refusing to let maintenance workers in, and demanding unnecessary inspections, looking for someone to blame for everything. Jessica, I was told, looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. I didn't celebrate. I didn't throw a party. This wasn't about watching them suffer. It was about something much more painful. Watching the son I raised choose to stay in a cage and call it love. One afternoon, my property manager sent me a report about a noise complaint. The neighbor below them had heard a big argument, shouting about losing control, and "this is all your fault." Michael had stormed out and didn't come back until the next morning. Jessica stayed locked inside the apartment all night. Lights off, curtains closed. I waited. Not for Michael. For her. It took 2 more days. 2 long, painful days. Then, just as the sun was going down one evening, my building's
Doorbell rang.
Hi, this is Jessica Hartwell. I was wondering if if my mother-in-law lives here. My heart stopped. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the screen, frozen. Then slowly, I pressed the button to let her in. 10 minutes later, there was a soft knock at my apartment door. When I opened it, she stood there looking like a ghost of the woman I knew. Pale, no makeup, wrinkled clothes. She looked 10 years older than she was. We stared at each other for a long time. Neither of us spoke. Finally, she let out a long breath. Hi, Mom. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. The room was quiet except for the sound of me making 2 cups of tea. I didn't ask why she was there. I didn't ask how she was feeling. I just handed her the tea, sat down across from her, and waited. I don't know where to start, she said. Her voice was barely louder than a whisper. I said nothing. She looked down at her cup. Michael's not. He's not the same person anymore.
He's angry all the time.
He blames the rent. He blames me. He blames the neighbor's dog for crying too much. Still, I stayed quiet. I thought I was doing the right thing back then. When we asked you to leave.
Asked.
Like I had a choice. I just wanted to keep the peace. I didn't want more fighting. Michael said. She stopped talking. He said you would never leave unless we made you. And God, I hate myself for agreeing with him. I took a sip of my tea. I miss you, she whispered. But I don't know how to fix what we broke. I looked at her face. Every worry line, every flinch. She was looking for forgiveness but was too scared to ask for it directly. So I gave her the only thing I could. Silence. Because sometimes silence is safer than the truth. We sat like that for almost an hour. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for help with the rent. She just wanted to be near me, and I let her. When she finally stood up to leave, she reached for my hand. I'm sorry, she said, for everything. I didn't say it back. I just held her hand a little longer than she expected. She pulled away first, and then, with tears in her eyes, she walked out the door. I didn't cry.
But
the second the door clicked shut, I sank into my chair, holding the warmth of her teacup in my hands like it was something precious.
She had come to me.
She had looked me in the eye. And now I knew the cracks were finally starting to show. The thing about real power is that you never have to raise your voice to use it. You don't slam doors or make threats. You just pull a string here, close a door there, and watch the people who underestimated you start to panic. And Michael was definitely panicking. After Jessica's visit, things got even darker in that apartment. I didn't need cameras to know it. You can feel a house falling apart if you pay attention. The maintenance team told me Michael had become completely unhinged, coming down to the management office twice a week, demanding to know who owned the building. He wanted names. He wanted a face to yell at. He wanted someone to blame. The fact that he couldn't find anyone made him lose his mind. He started investigating on his own. I knew he would. Michael wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. I had seen the way he used to check Jessica's phone when she took too long at the store. The way he questioned her about receipts and how long her errands took. Controlling didn't even begin to describe it. So when he started digging around for information about DM properties, I was ready. He tried looking up the business online first. But my lawyer had filed everything through a privacy company. No names, no leads, nothing. Then came the fake emails to my property manager, pretending to be different people, asking who owned the building. Sloppy and desperate. He even called the county office, pretending to be a lawyer representing another property owner. The clerk caught him lying and reported it straight to us. And when those tricks failed, he turned his anger inward. On Jessica. I don't know exactly what happened, but one of the neighbors called the management office asking if someone could check on the Hartwells. She said she heard glass breaking and angry voices. The kind of anger that doesn't just come from money problems. It comes from fear. The maintenance man went upstairs. Nobody answered the door, but through the walls, he could hear Michael pacing and muttering, Jessica crying. The silence that came after was heavier than all the yelling. A few days later, I got a strange envelope delivered to my apartment. No name on the outside. No return address. Inside was a note. I know what you're doing. You think you're smart, but you don't scare me. I'll figure out who you are, and when I do, you'll be sorry. No signature, but I knew the handwriting. Michael wrote like he talked. Angry, messy, pressing too hard on the paper. I sat there with that letter in my hands, heart beating fast. Not because I was scared, but because it reminded me of the moment he stood in that kitchen and looked at me like I was dirt under his shoe. The way Jessica stood beside him, not just quiet, but helping him hurt me. And now he was the one grasping at shadows, choking on uncertainty, screaming into empty air. It was poetic, but it was also dangerous. So I fought back harder. I had my lawyer contact building security. We installed more cameras. Quiet ones, legal ones, normal ones. I made sure the other tenants were safe. The building wasn't going to fall apart because one man couldn't handle the weight of his own cruelty. And Jessica, she didn't call again. But I heard from the building manager that she had been walking to work. Her car had been sold. Their electricity was being turned off early every night. Lights out by 8 p.m. No heat on cold nights. The cracks weren't just in their relationship. They were in their ability to survive. And yet, through it all, I kept my distance. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about resolution. Letting Michael's world get smaller and smaller until he realized how tiny he really was. And letting Jessica decide, would she stay in the cage or find the key I had placed right in front of her? I knew she wasn't ready yet. But the walls were closing in, and secrets have a way of leaking through cracks. I didn't expect the knock on my door that night. It had been quiet for days. No emails from management, no voicemails from Jessica, no more anonymous threats. Just silence. The kind that feels like a storm hiding in the distance, waiting to strike. But when the knock came, soft and slow, something in my chest got tight. I opened the door. Jessica stood there, soaked from the rain. A grocery bag held against her chest like it was the only thing keeping her standing up. Her eyes were red, and her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked like she had run out of words days ago. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, leaving drops of water on my clean floor. I handed her a towel, and we moved without talking. I heated up some water and made 2 cups of chamomile tea. She sat on the edge of the couch like she didn't want to stay long, like she didn't
Deserve to be there.
And maybe she didn't. She stared into her cup with empty eyes. He's not who I thought he was, she said finally. I stayed quiet. I mean, part of me always knew, but I told myself it was just stress, that he just needed support, that if I was patient enough, he would change. Still, I said nothing. She looked up at me, her voice shaking. He thinks someone is targeting us specifically. He's obsessed with finding out who. He's been going through my phone, my emails, my purse. Last week, he followed me to work, said he was making sure I wasn't involved in some kind of conspiracy. A chill ran through her, and it wasn't from the cold. He asked me if I was hiding something. If you were hiding something. That made me catch my breath. She didn't wait for me to answer. I told him I hadn't talked to you in weeks, that I didn't even know where you were living. She paused. But that was a lie. I met her eyes for the first time. I figured out your building was listed with the same management company. It wasn't hard to put together. Of course it wasn't. Jessica was smart. She had always been smart. But smart doesn't always mean brave. And now she looked like someone who had finally opened her eyes and hated what she saw. I didn't speak. Not yet. I miss you, she whispered. But I don't even know how to be around you anymore. My hand got tighter around my mug. You left, she said, voice cracking. And I let you go. I let him push you away. Finally, I spoke. No, Jessica. You didn't just let him. You stood with him. That stopped her completely. She blinked. Her lips opened slightly, like she wanted to argue, to defend herself. But there was nothing left to defend. I stood up and walked to the window. I stared out into the dark night. I begged for your voice that night, I said. Just one word. Just one. And you stayed silent. Behind me,